Have you ever really, truly stopped to think about mass? I mean, what it
It's
is.
fundamental, right, to everything.
Exactly. From, a tiny speck of dust to entire galaxies. We usually hear about the Higgs field like it's this cosmic treacle giving things mass.
That's the standard picture, yeah. A universal field interaction.
But what if that's, well, just part of the story? What if mass and gravity and maybe reality itself springs from something much more dynamic, something unexpected?
Something interconnected, perhaps.
Precisely. Today, we're diving deep into a really groundbreaking paper. It's called Mass as Coherence Condensation, a hypergravity-based model within the unified coherence theory.
It's by Philip Randolph Lillian from the Unified Coherence Research Institute.
And this isn't just some tweak to existing ideas, it's proposing a whole new framework, the unified coherence theory of everything, or UCTE.
A very ambitious title.
It is. It claims to offer a unified story for how everything emerges: particles, forces, even dimensions. So stick with us, and you'll get a shortcut to understanding this potentially paradigm-shifting model. We're hoping for some real aha moments today.
It certainly offers a different perspective. Conventional physics, like you said, points to the Higgs, which is a brilliant model for how particles get mass.
Right.
But it doesn't quite nail the why these specific mass values, and how does inertia, that resistance to being pushed, fundamentally connect to gravitational pull. The mechanism is there, but the deep reason.
It feels a bit incomplete sometimes.
You could say that, leave some fundamental questions open.
Okay, so let's unpack how UCTE tackles that why. They have this core concept: coherence, condensation. What on earth does that mean?
Okay, try picturing this. Imagine the universe isn't fundamentally empty space. Instead, it's filled with a super subtle, unchanging background field. Let's call it hypergravity.
Okay, hypergravity, like a base layer.
Exactly, like the fundamental rhythm of reality. Now, imagine other field structures, ripples, waves moving through this. Coherence condensation is when these ripples start to lock onto that rhythm. They recursively phase lock to hypergravity.
Gaze lock, like synchronizing watches.
Sort of, yeah. Imagine waves aligning perfectly peak to peak, trough to trough. And recursive means this locking in keeps happening over and over, reinforcing itself. It builds stability.
Wow. So mass isn't just a property something has, it's an active process, a continuous connection.
That's the core idea. It's dynamic. And
Yeah.
you mentioned the omnilectic vacuum earlier.
Right, where does that fit?
That's the grand stage, the primordial medium where hypergravity itself exists. It's not empty. It's this active reservoir.
Yeah.
So mass emerges from these ongoing recursive coherence interactions within this omnilectic vacuum.
Okay, that's a lot of new terminology. Let's just pin those down clearly. How does UCTE define mass itself?
Right. So in UCTE, mass is basically the measure of how persistently a coherent energy structure holds together because it's phase-locked with hypergravity. It's about stability.
In hypergravity.
That's the fundamental invariant coherence field within the omnilectic vacuum. The bedrock stability.
And coherence condensation is the process.
Exactly. It's the process where energy gets localized, becomes what we see as a particle, or mass through that recursive phase locking, like sound waves finding a resonant frequency in a room and creating a stable note.
And they even formalize this, right? There's a mass emergence theorem in the paper. It looks quite mathematical.
It does, yeah. The integral FES TXT.
It does, yeah. The integral M, conceptually, it's saying that mass M arises from adding up all these recursive phase-locking events happening along specific coherence pathways. It's about a coherence tensor. Think of it as describing the complex twists and flows of these fields condensing into a stable structure.
And that condensation process itself explains inertia. They call it recursive inertia. It's the resistance of that stable structure to dissolving or losing its coherence. The universe essentially saying, I found a stable pattern, I'm holding on to it.
So if mass is this coherence thing, how does UCTE view the building blocks we know from the standard model? Like the Higgs boson, is it just thrown out?
Not thrown out, but definitely recast. In UCTE, the Higgs isn't seen as the giver of mass. It's viewed as an emergent scalar resonance mode.
Okay. A resonance mode, like a specific frequency.
Exactly. Think of it as a particularly stable hum or vibration that arises from the deep coherence phase locking process. It's where coherence really settles into stability, what we measure as rest mass. So it's less the cause, more a consequence or a signature of mass emerging.
Interesting. So it's still important, but its role is different. What about dark matter, the universe's big mystery ingredient?
UCTE describes dark matter as hypergravity coherence residue.
Residues.
Leftovers. Sort of. Think of them as very stable, highly massed, coherent structures. They're strongly phase-locked to hypergravity, which gives them mass, but they barely interact with normal matter.
Why not?
Because they're effectively shielded from the kind of messy, decoherent interactions we usually see. They exist in a different coherent state, you might say, like deep, stable pools connected to the underlying hypergravity current, but not making waves on the surface we observe.
That provides a kind of structural reason for why it's so hard to detect. What about neutrinos? We know they have mass, but it's tiny and they change types.
Right, the oscillation. UCTE sees this as the direct result of weak coherence coupling and coherence instability. They're almost, but not quite, perfectly phase-locked.
Just barely hanging on.
In a way, yes. This slight instability allows them to shift their coherent state, that's the oscillation. And the weak coupling means only a tiny bit of energy gets locked in as mass.
And particles with zero mass, photons.
They travel along what UCTE calls null coherence geodesics. They're pure coherence waves that never phase-lock to hypergravity. They just flow freely, no anchoring, no mass.
Okay, now the big one, symmetry breaking. Crucial in the standard model. How does UCTE handle that? Does symmetry still break?
It reframes it. It's not breaking in the sense of shattering. UCT calls it torsional phase misalignment.
Like torsional, like twisting.
Exactly. Imagine the coherence field flowing as it moves through different energy levels or hypergravity gradients. It doesn't break its symmetry, it redirects it through twists or torsion.
Like braiding hair, the pattern changes, but the strands are still connected.
That's a great analogy. Symmetry gets channeled into new forms, new structures, because of these inherent twists in the field. It's a dynamic shift, not a sudden break.
That's a fundamentally different way of looking at it. So this coherence idea, it explains mass, it reinterprets the Higgs, dark matter. Does it also explain why we have all these different types of particles? The families, leptons, quarks, bosons.
It aims to, yes. The UCTE proposes that all these particle families emerge as resonance quantizations of this underlying coherence tensor field.
Resonance quantizations. Like musical notes.
Very much like that. Think of the universe as this vast coherence field capable of vibrating in countless ways. Particles aren't fundamental dots. They are stable, quantized notes or chords within this field.
Okay.
So bosons, the force carriers, like photons, are seen as harmonic wave mediators. They carry the phase coherence information, like transmitting the musical relationships.
And fermions, electrons, quarks.
They're described as resonance nodes. These are the stable phase-locked points. They represent quantized states of coherence, torsion-specific, stable twists locked into place. Each particle type has a unique signature of these twists and stability levels.
And there's a system for this, a classification.
Yes, the Coherence Harmonic Taxonomy, or CHA, it attempts to categorize particles based on this coherent structure.
Can you give us a flavor of that?
Sure. So Tier I would be the simplest modes, like the electron or neutrino fundamental single-node patterns. Tier 2 gets more complex, things like the muon, tau, and the quarks. These are described as having angular momentum, like twisted phase modes.
More complex twists.
Right. Tier 3 includes composite particles like protons and neutrons, seen as multinodal coherence chains. Chains of these twists linked together.
And higher tiers.
Tier 3 moves into what they call hypercoherent states. This is where they place potential dark matter families, highly organized, stable, field-locked eigenlattices, deeply embedded coherent structures.
Wow. And where does the Higgs fit in this taxonomy?
It's designated Tier H5, a scalar condensate, and the photon, being massless, is Tier H0, representing null-line coherence.
And basic properties like spin.
Spin in this view isn't some intrinsic angular momentum, but rather a projection of the particle's internal bivector rotation, the way its coherent structure is inherently twisting.
That's a complete remapping.
Right.
What about something like quark confinement? Why are quarks never found alone? The standard model uses gluons.
UCTE offers a structural explanation. Quarks aren't just glued together, they are embedded in torsion harmonic chains. The very topology, the shape of these coherent chains, prevents a single quark from decohering or breaking off.
Like a knot that structurally can't be undone into separate strands?
Exactly. And the concept of quark color charge gets reinterpreted as torsion phase chirality, basically, the specific handedness or direction of the twist in their coherent structure. Confinement becomes an inherent property of their coherence geometry.
Okay, so particles are stable resonances. What about when they aren't stable? Particle decay.
Ah, yes. UCTE has a beautiful perspective on decay. It's summed up nicely. Mass is recursive coherence held. Decay is recursive coherence lost.
So it's an unwinding, not just a spontaneous change.
Precisely. It's the gradual breakdown of that stable phase locking with hypergravity. The particle's structure loses its coherence and dissolves into lower, simpler harmonics or particle types.
Are there different ways this happens?
They describe three main modes. Dissipative decay is where coherence sort of slowly leaks away.
Yeah.
Think of a muon decaying into an electron.
Okay.
Then there's catastrophic decay. The phase lock breaks completely and suddenly. The mass vanishes, converted entirely into radiation, like when a meson annihilates.
A total collapse.
Right. And finally, transmutative decay. Here, the coherence structure just shifts tier on the harmonic ladder. It rearranges itself into a different stable particle, like a neutron changing into a proton.
So decay isn't destruction.
No, it's seen as a descent along the harmonic ladder of coherence, a redistribution of coherence within the universe.
That leads nicely into another big idea, supersymmetry. Usually that involves searching for undiscovered superpartner particles. What's the UCTE take?
It's quite different. UCTE suggests supersymmetry isn't about finding new, heavier particles. It's an inherent duality within the torsion structure of the coherence field itself.
A duality? How so?
Imagine that every stable, coherent structure, every particle has a kind of mirror image, a phase-mirrored resonance complement. It's identical in many ways, but has an inverted torsional signature. Its internal twist is mirrored.
So these supersymmetric states exist already. Why don't we see them?
They are generally invisible to our current methods. They only become detectable if their specific phase happens to align with the detection thresholds we use, which rely on decoherence. So it's not a missing piece, but an inherent, often hidden feature of the coherent structure of reality.
Okay, this framework is reaching really far now. Let's pull back slightly. Quantum gravity. The quest to unite gravity with quantum mechanics. We usually think of curved space-time or gravitons. How does UCTE approach this?
Radically differently, as you might expect by now. In UCTE, gravity isn't a force. It's not space-time curvature in the usual sense. It's a recursive coherence anchoring process.
Anchoring. Explain that.
Okay, objects with high coherence density, what we perceive as having lots of mass, have a stronger ability to anchor or stabilize the coherence field around them. They sort of pin it down.
So more mass means stronger pinning.
Exactly. The stronger the anchoring, the greater the effect we perceive as gravity. It's a large-scale persistence of coherence, reinforced constantly.
And gravitational waves.
Those are reinterpreted as coherence ripple modes. They aren't ripples in space-time, but ripples of this coherence anchoring phase propagating through the field.
This sounds like it could naturally explain the equivalence principle, why inertial mass and gravitational mass are the same.
Precisely, because they stem from the same root. Inertia is coherence persistence, the resistance of a structure to losing its locked-in state. Gravity is coherence anchoring, the effect of that locked-in state on the wider field. Both are just facets of the same underlying recursive coherence system.
Mind blown. Okay, let's take something seemingly simpler. Black body radiation. Heat radiating from objects. Does UCTE have a different angle on that too?
It does. It's recast as the remission of torsionally collapsed coherence fields.
Whoa. Not just heat-shaking atoms.
Less about thermal agitation, more about structural relaxation. Imagine a complex, twisted coherence structure losing stability. As it collapses and untwists, it releases energy. That energy release, that signature of geometric unbinding, is what we measure as blackbody radiation.
So even the cosmic microwave background, the echo of the Big Bang,
could be interpreted in this framework as a universal coherence decay echo. The afterglow of the early universe's massive coherence structures settling down and releasing their bound energy.
This theory introduces other new structures too, right? Something called coherence event horizons, CEHs.
Yes. Think of them like gravitational event horizons around black holes, but arising from coherence, not gravity directly. They are surfaces where the speed at which coherence information can propagate drops effectively to zero.
Why would that happen?
Due to recursive coherence collapse. The field gets so densely self-locked that information just can't get through past a critical threshold. Inside a CEH, coherent structures get trapped in frozen resonance shells, unable to interact further, a different kind of boundary.
A boundary made of coherence itself. This is leading to a really fundamental question. What about dimensions? Our familiar 3D space plus time. Where do they come from in UCTE?
This is perhaps one of the most radical parts. Dimensionality itself isn't seen as a fixed background stage. It emerges.
Emerges from what?
It emerges through indexed phase thresholds in the coherence field. They call it the coherence spectrum.
Okay. Index phase thresholds, like levels.
Exactly like levels or steps on a ladder. Each dimension, 1D, 2D, 3D, even time, corresponds to a specific stable resonance phase achieved by the coherence field. Our reality is structured by these stable rungs in the ladder of coherent condensation.
So dimensions aren't absolute, they're states of coherence.
That's the implication. It even suggests that different regions of space-time could, theoretically, have different local dimensionalities depending on the local coherence concentration.
That's hard to grasp. Is there an analogy that helps?
The paper offers a fascinating one. Biological morphogenesis.
How life takes shape.
Yes. Think about how a single fertilized egg develops zygote, gastrula, complex organs. This biological development, the unfolding of form and structure, might actually be driven by the same kind of phase-indexed coherence thresholds. These thresholds guide how energy condenses to form dimensional structures in tissues.
So the rules for cosmic dimensions and biological form could be linked.
UCTE suggests they arise from the same fundamental principles of coherence, condensation, and phase thresholds. It's a profound connection.
Wow. Okay, moving towards very small again. The vacuum. Zero-point energy. Often pictured as chaotic, virtual particles popping in and out.
UCTE sees it very differently. The ZPE isn't chaotic. It's a highly structured coherence reservoir of vast, organized potential.
An ordered vacuum.
Yes. And this structured reservoir allows for the spontaneous emergence of what they call entanglement fabrics. This process forms the entanglement weave.
The entanglement weave.
It's like a pre-existing network of interconnected coherent pathways that forms the absolute bedrock of space-time and dictates quantum behavior. Entanglement, then, isn't just between particles.
It's deeper.
It's fundamentally between the tensor eigenmodes of the vacuum field itself. It's woven into the fabric from the start.
And one more concept you mentioned. Coherence permittivity wells.
Right. Think of these as analogous to gravitational wells, but for coherence. They are localized dips or minima in the coherence field gradient.
What do they do?
They act like lenses or guides. Coherent fields naturally condense and refract along pathways within these wells. They are zones where coherence is guided into structured emergence, influencing how mass forms, how phase locking happens, maybe even how dimensions stratify. Cosmic coherence condensers, if you like.
So if you put it all together,
You get this incredibly interconnected picture. UCTE proposes a framework where everything mass, particles, forces, gravity, dimensions, entanglement, the vacuum structure itself emerges from the dynamics of an underlying coherence field interacting with a fundamental hypergravity background. It's all about coherence, resonance, and phase locking.
okay, wow. This has been a journey. Let's try to quickly pull together the biggest takeaways from this deep dive. We started with mass, not from the Higgs primarily, but as coherence condensation, a dynamic locking with hypergravity in the omnilectic vacuum.
A total shift in perspective.
Then particles, not fundamental points, but resonance quantizations of that coherence field, classified by the CHA. Decay isn't destruction, but a descent down the harmonic ladder.
A redistribution of coherence.
Supersymmetry becomes an intrinsic torsional duality, not missing partners. Gravity is recursive coherence anchoring, not force or curvature.
Connecting inertia and gravity fundamentally.
Maybe the most mind-bending dimensions themselves emerge from indexed phase thresholds, potentially linking cosmic structure to biological form. It's all woven together by this underlying entanglement weave.
A deeply unified vision.
So for you listening, what does this all mean? Well, it fundamentally challenges our intuition. It asks us to imagine a universe built not just on stuff, but on relationships, on resonance, on incredibly deep structured coherence that underlies everything.
It really does. And it leads back to that evocative quote from the paper. Mass is memory of coherence held, phase preserved, and structure endured.
Mass is memory.
Maybe, just maybe, in the UCTE framework, our entire universe is like a vast unfolding memory. A memory of some primordial coherence dynamically playing out, expressing itself through these intricate interwoven fields, constantly remembering and rebuilding structure. A profound thought to end on.